What's up, guys? This is Cross Platform. I'm that one Heath. I'm here with my buddy Gordy Mills and Mike on Skype. And we just finished watching the opening episode of The Walking Dead this season. So this is your warning right now. We're going full spoilers for the episode and episodes past and the comic books. So if you're real sensitive about that stuff, and if you haven't watched it yet, A, what's wrong with you? And B, I would shut this off right now. So basically, we're just going to talk our feelings out on this. Going to talk about what we liked about the episode, what we didn't like, what we thought might have been different, if we were satisfied with this long wait that we've had over the last, 8 months? Or something like that?
Yeah.
So Gordy, I'm going to kick it over to you first. Were you satisfied with the way the season kicked off?
Overall, yes. That was a roller coaster. At first, like they finally showed the first death, Abraham.
Well, before we get too into the weeds, Mike, were you satisfied with the way things turned out?
Satisfaction is a funny word for that episode.
Well,
saddened.
sure.
Yeah, very saddened. But it exceeded my expectations, I would say.
It was worth the cliffhanger that everybody was so butthurt about.
Oh, man, I don't know about that cliffhanger. But it definitely made me want that episode.
Yeah.
I didn't.
So, for me, what happened immediately after the cliffhanger, or the part that they showed us, no, that wasn't worth the wait.
It
Because
yeah,
like,
I know what you're saying.
it was Abraham. He was the one that Negan took out. He was the one that we saw the first person view of getting hit. You know, he was the one that got picked from Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. And I guess, like, for me, there was really only 4 characters that it could be that I felt would have been worth the wait.
Right. And before we discuss like the whole thing, did you have a prediction? What was your prediction before?
Prior to right before that in this episode, my prediction was either Daryl or Glenn.
What about you, Mike?
I thought it was Glenn. Just for the fact that they were trying to play him down so low. You know, oh, it's not going to be Glenn. It was the same thing in the comics.
Okay.
But then I was like, it's going to be Glenn.
Yeah. And all cards on the table. I've been reading the comics forever. Gordy, I know you read most of them, but you're not current.
Right.
And Mike, you started to read them, but haven't gotten far.
Yeah, like two episodes.
Okay.
2 issues, I should say.
So yeah, I've got these whole glasses on where I, quote unquote, know what's supposed to happen. And they've done a really good job so far in the series itself to change things up enough to I'm stunned and shocked and surprised, so I just don't know every twist and turn that's coming. But this, I think knowing what happened or what happens in the comics for this episode made it even more shocking from what actually did take place in this episode, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But just because from what happens in the comics, Glenn is the only one that gets the beat down.
Right.
And the way they did it in the show was shot for shot, almost perfect with how the panels went in the comic. But having him, Abraham, take that initial, shock away, I was not expecting Glenn to get it. I was over it. I'd moved on, and then
we're like, all right, it's time we can process this.
And they hit me right over the head with a bat again, and I was not ready.
Yeah, that was a stunner.
But
yeah, I felt completely surprised by that. I thought Abraham was done, and I was like, oh, you know what? That's not so bad. And then boom, then the real pain sets in.
Right. And I was kind of, this is sad and wrong to say, I was kind of disappointed that it was Abraham because I like Abraham, sure, but he's not. I didn't, because I knew what happened in the comics. I didn't think he was enough of an emotional impact, and I had just enough time to process that and be like, okay, well, I'll move on from that, and then wham, the next hammer fall.
Right.
It was, yeah, that it got me. But as far as my prediction goes, I thought it was going to be Maggie, just to shake things up, because, you know, did they really want another baby on the show? And I thought it was Maggie right up until the point where she started having, you know, issues with the baby, where they were taking her to the hilltop. And then my prediction kind of wavered, and I just kind of left it up in the air. So I was wrong. Did you have any predictions on your end, Mike?
Not really. I mean, I kind of threw around the idea of Daryl, but then I thought, he's too strong. They can't get rid of Daryl.
And
Um,
they would burn the world down if Daryl died. The
yeah,
fans.
yeah, exactly. I mean, you heard the crowd's reaction when he walked out on stage. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got to be one of the fan favorites.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. So as far as the rest of the episode goes, there's a lot of kind of jumping back and forth in the timeline, at least for that, one episode. What did you guys think of the episode as a whole? Like a good jumping off point for the next season?
Yeah. I think it's gonna be pretty pivotal, and like that's gonna be a turning point from this point forward. Like I think the entire show sort of just changed gears, or like changed direction. But I guess going back to the comics, like it was kind of like that there too.
Right. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I guess I don't really have that comic background for
Yeah.
this show. So, discussion at work kind of revolved around, oh, you know what? It kind of feels like it's getting stale. This is like the reset button. This
Mhm.
brought a lot of energy back to the show. It's going to be really interesting, kind of scary to see where they take this for this season. I mean, it's going to be multiple seasons. They're not going to be able to wrap this up in one season. It's going to be pretty intense.
Right. And for us comic book readers, there's like, the BN, the before Negan, and the
Mhm.
AN, the after Negan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really interesting because when you look at it in that terms, we just completely sweep the governor under the rug, who was he was a pretty terrible and awful character too, but compared to Negan, it's night and day different, the kind of crazy that they're dealing with. And I think you're right, this is going to change the status quo for seasons to come, and yeah, they're not going to be able to neatly wrap this up with a bow in one or two seasons. So it'll be interesting seeing how they handle it going forward.
Yeah.
But what about, how do you think, like, when the whole Glenn thing happened, I kept the second thing that was in my mind, other than oh shit, was how Daryl is gonna cope
Yeah.
with him, like,
He's got to live with that.
being the reason why another was chosen.
Yeah, no, living with knowing that his outburst and him punching Negan,
As satisfying
Is-
as that was,
right, and it was, but that was the immediate cause for Glenn's death. While, like, that can't be justified in any right mind, he knows that Glenn died because...
or does it? I mean, does
Because
he
of his
even
outburst.
realize? Has that even sank in yet? That
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
and he's the reason that happened.
And now he's in the back of a truck, and when are we going to see him again?
Right.
Yeah, I
But-
think with Daryl, I mean, we've seen in the past where he's taken a lot of responsibility and guilt for things, and this is gonna just I mean, it might eat his character to destruction.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's really true.
I can't see anything good happening from this.
Yeah, he's got a lot of. I don't want to say he's got a lot of death on his hands, but he's taken a lot of the characters' deaths to heart, like personally.
So, a thought that I had, kind of on the topic of Daryl. I know, Mike, I know you don't read the comics. Daryl's not in the comics. And I don't think we really have a character in the comics that kind of fits that description.
No, I don't. Yeah, no.
So we don't have that storyline to go by, and I'm kind of curious to find out like how that's going to play out. I'm kind of thinking like I wonder if Negan's going to try to convert him and try to turn him into one of the saviors, turn him into one of his soldiers.
Right, he does kind of try to do that with a character in the with a character we know in the show,
Yeah.
who's also in the comics. So yeah, that's a replacement for that character. That's a good. Yeah, that's interesting.
Are you talking about Carl?
Yeah, I didn't know. Spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah, Negan kind of takes Carl under his wing and tries to like show him that, hey, I'm not really that bad of a guy.
I kind of hope we still see that. Like he actually shows how much admiration and respect he has for Carl, for being this little kid that lost his eye, and like, which Carl also lost his eye in the show. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that whole arc was interesting. Go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say I don't know if I mean Carl and they've always had a great relationship, but that's gonna be different from here on out. I mean, I almost feel like maybe Carl lost a little bit of respect, even though he said go ahead and do it. The fact that he picked the axe up, that's gonna be a pretty big deal.
Right, and that's the whole other thing we haven't even touched on yet. Is
Yeah.
that just complete and total, excuse my language, mindfuck of the whole axing off Carl's arm to, show dominance. I mean, at that point my emotions were raw anyways. So I fully intended on that happening. I was throwing it.
I don't think that's gonna be a I can't believe he was gonna do it type of moment. Because of like clearly this guy isn't afraid to hurt people or kill people, and he's threatening to kill the entire group if Rick doesn't cut off his son's arm. Like, I think everyone there would be like, come on, dude, cut off his damn arm. Including Carl. Like, he'd probably be more upset if, like, I can't believe you weren't going to do it. And put all these other people at risk.
So let me ask you, was that in the comics?
No. The one thing I'd say is that I don't know, because I don't know if it's going to happen in the show, so I don't want to, because I know you haven't read the comics. I don't want to ruin it if it's going to happen later.
It's been so long ago that's where we were in the comics. I feel like I need to go back and reread just to remember all of what happened.
I mean, something happens to a character that's in the show, that's in the comics, that they lose an arm, or they lose, their lower arm, but that happens in a drastically different way and a different timeline, a different time point in the comic and the show. So what has happened should have happened already in the timeline of the show, and it hasn't. So I don't know. There's always been this will they or won't they chop this character's arm off. So
yeah.
I don't want to, since you don't know or haven't read the comics, I don't want to spoil that for you, Mike.
I think I do know, because I was almost expecting it to happen in that show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you know? That way we can talk about it.
So through the grapevine, I was told Rick was going to be losing a hand. So I was almost expecting that, and then it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you heard correctly, but the way it happens in the comics is, if I remember correctly, he loses it during the fight with the governor, or the governor takes him prisoner and
I thought he
cuts his
got.
arm off.
Oh no, yeah, that's right. It was the governor.
Yeah.
And it was more of like a. It was payback for something.
Yeah, it was.
He held him down and chopped his arm off.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been waiting for that. You know, they did the little, the teaser, upcoming on the first episode thing, which was the opening sequence to the episode, where he, takes him and his axe and drags him into the trailer, and then that was it. And then that ended up being the first, 3 or 4 minutes of this episode.
Right.
Initially seeing that teaser, I thought, oh, well, this is where Rick loses his arm, is he's going to drag him in there and chop his arm off and then bring him back out and throw him on the ground.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that whole scene with Carl, that was, I generally don't get super anxious when I'm watching TV. That got my heartbeat going.
I know, while it shouldn't be the consideration, I think as far as the show writers and their decisions on whether or not to do something, the cost, like the logistics behind it, have to be considered. And I wonder if that's why it hasn't happened yet. Because the special effects to remove a limb in every single shot that person's in, and from this point forward in the show, they have to make it so they don't have that limb, whether there's a prosthetic, or that's why people were saying Carl wasn't going to lose his eye, but then he lost it anyway, and they counter that by putting gauze over it.
Right.
That's easy. Just wear eye patch for the rest of your career.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
in the comics, he has this gaping hole in his skull, like in every scene.
He does, but for the longest time he wore the bandage, and then he wore the patch.
That's true.
And then when he was taken in by the governor, and the governor's like, "Hey kid, this is the world we live in. You're beautiful. Let your freak flag fly."
Negan?
Or yeah, Negan. Sorry, jeez, what did I say?
The governor.
The governor. Jesus. Yeah, and when Negan takes him under his wing, he kind of gives Carl this boost in confidence.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why I hope we still see that, because that was such a cool moment that they had together. But yeah, I can see that, but that's still, I don't know if that's necessarily a deciding factor considering how popular the show is. I don't think they're hurting for money.
Right.
But so let's move to the aftermath, like all that stuff's happened and they're just sitting there in the gravel, kind of just with each other's thoughts and these two bodies. Do you think I mean, I can't think of any other way that could have ended, with them kind of, I don't like the fact that they're splitting up again. Like they're splitting the group up yet again. Like people, like Daryl's off this way.
Yep.
Maggie and Sasha are going to Hilltop, and then everybody else is kind of going back to Alexandria. And that just kind of seems how the beginning/ends of seasons have been going the last few times.
It's like it's their format.
Right.
And while that was definitely a reset, it seems like they may still be sticking to the format.
Which I couldn't believe that was going to happen again.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the split up might be good because it might give Maggie a time to be able to take more of a leadership role. I mean, I don't know if that's what happens in the comic book or not, but I mean, I almost see her taking over just due to those words she said, like, we got to kill him, like she's going to try to probably take the reins of the group.
That's exactly what happens. Well, sort of. In the comics, she kind of ends up like taking over Hilltop.
Yeah.
And becoming like the leader of that group, and then Rick in Alexandria, and they've already showed it in the trailers, but we're gonna
Meet a new character.
meet a new character
with a new
and a new
group of
group.
people.
I'm really excited about that.
Oh yeah, me too.
I am looking
Yeah.
forward to what's gonna come of this season.
I mean, last season when she was doing the negotiations with the leader of Alexandria, I was just like, oh man, that's an awesome side that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
that this has happened to her, I feel like we're going to see the same thing, but just darker.
Right. And I think for a good long while, that's how she's gonna be, is no nonsense, kind of very protective of her people, I would assume.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
speak.
Like Sophia isn't there in the show, and I think that like in the comics that kept her grounded.
That's true.
They her and Glenn adopted Carol's daughter in the comics, and so they were like her parents, and they moved to Hilltop to like raise her in a safer community. And that was sort of the mother role that she played, but I think that also kept her from like just completely going after them.
Right, but
And we don't have that.
well, she
this
may
time. She could
legitimately
we don't know
have
yet.
that.
We don't
But
know
yeah,
yet.
the thing is, they could go one of two ways with that, and we're getting way into the weeds now. But she could lose the baby because of this whole thing, and go just completely psycho and all consuming revenge,
Right.
or she could have this baby and it would mellow her out and be more, I've got to protect my community and my family, you know.
Yeah. I know. I hate to keep talking about the comics and bring them back up, but they really have come back to, I think, following that storyline a little more closely than they did in the first few seasons. I know it's probably going to alienate some people, but it's relevant, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
Mike, you need to start reading them.
I know.
Yeah, no, that is on my to-do list.
Put 'em-
I really do need to do that.
Put them on your phone. And that's what I did. When I put them on my phone, I was caught up in like a matter of weeks.
We're legitimately
issues?
sitting next to every single or every single comic right now. So
That's true.
if you can get to me or I can get to you, it won't be a problem.
We'll make it happen.
I almost set the cup down on top of them.
Did you?
Yeah. I was like, that's not a good idea.
So, and there's stuff this season that we've been teased. You were talking about the character Ezekiel and
Yep.
his tiger,
Yep. Shiva.
which have been in the previews for this season. So we still have some questions that need answering. We don't know where Carol and Morgan are. They're still out somewhere. Morgan's now killing people, or at least killed one person, which goes against his samurai code, his
moral
monk
compass.
code.
Yeah.
And Carol, who just doesn't seem to want to kill anybody anymore because she's had to for so long. And we didn't really get a look at them really in the upcoming on this season trailer at the end. So I'm interested to see what they're doing and how that'll come in.
Yeah, I kind of
Once-
totally
and-
forgot
and
about
once
everyone.
And once they realize what's happened,
Yeah.
I think that'll be an interesting moment.
Totally forgot about them.
Yeah. A lot happened this episode. It's understandable.
A lot happened, but yet there are still so many loose ends.
Like what?
Like, I mean, just not knowing where Carol is, and I mean, does Negan know about her? You know, what's going to happen with them? Are they going to come back as kind of like rescuers?
Oh, they've done that once before too,
Yeah.
though. With her being the outcast, and
Oh
when
yeah,
she
she saved
saved
him
them
in
from
Terminus.
Terminus.
Yep.
so yeah, that would be odd if she did that again, but you never know. But yeah, I'm really excited to see Ezekiel and the kingdom come into play. And I still think there was a moment last season where Carol was out in the wilderness when she was on her walkabout that she ran into somebody on horseback and he had like a spear. And I was like, why? And that immediately made me think of the kingdom. Because I don't think he ever really said who he was or where he was from, or I vaguely remember this from this past season, and I always thought it was somebody from the kingdom, or it was a nod to that, because I didn't know Ezekiel was even going to be in
Right.
the next season or not. But I don't know.
They're probably going to drag us along and introduce Ezekiel at the mid-season finale.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes these seasons can drag a little bit in the middle. So I don't know if I would be really upset if the whole shot of Ezekiel and then Shiva roaring was like the last thing we see at the end of the season. That would piss me off so much. I can't take another one of these cliffhangers like this.
That's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to do exactly that.
I mean, we've had 6 cliffhangers.
Well, yeah, but you have to admit, this last one was like the cliffhanger to end all cliffhangers.
They owe us a huge crushing blow at the end, and then just cut it from there, and let us process.
All right.
For like 8 months.
I'm sure they'll find a way to top it off. I mean, we thought, oh, this is the most evil character we're ever going to see. This is the best cliffhanger we're ever going to see. And then they just keep blowing it out of the water.
Yeah, yeah. With the exception, at least for me personally, with the exception of the second season, where they spent all that time at the farm, every season has been dynamite for me. Yeah. I haven't had with the exception of the second season, I've been completely happy with all the other seasons. And the second season wasn't bad, it was just kind of slow.
I felt like they were at the prison too long.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like that dragged on. I was kind of excited to see them taking it in a completely different direction than what we knew. And then they brought it right back around.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
I've thoroughly enjoyed the slow parts, to be honest with you. I really like that character building that you get to see when they're not busy destroying zombies or fighting for a city.
Sure.
Like second season, I loved it.
Yeah.
But I know everybody I talked to like, oh, I almost stopped watching the show after that. But the farm was fun.
Yeah. I mean, there were definitely good parts and like really pivotal character moments, like with Shane and everything like that. But yeah, it was. I mean, and that's like you said. That's the only thing I've heard a majority of is the second season was slow.
Wasn't that when they got different leadership? When the actual show got different leadership?
I can't remember if it was going into the second season or if it was after the second season.
It was Frank Darabont was the show writer before, and then after that it was Scott Gimple.
Yeah, and Nicotero.
I thought Nicotero was there the whole time.
No,
but it might have been.
Maybe. But yeah.
All right, so before we go on, I think I really needed to bring up that scene, the dinner scene where they're at the table with Glenn and future Glenn Jr.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Well, I completely forgotten about that at that point, or at this point, talking about all the other stuff. But yeah, that was especially with the kid there.
I'm kind of curious, like, what that meant. It was like when we were watching it, I was like, oh, and then they got to show the kid. And, like, while they were showing that, you hear Negan in the background saying, like, what, did you really think it was going to be, like, everyone sitting around the table eating a Sunday dinner, playing cards or something like that? Like, no, that's not the world we live in anymore. And so with the kid sitting on Glenn's lap, I'm kind of curious if that means, like, are we going to get to meet this kid or no? As we won't find out yet. Or, I mean, We don't know yet. We'll find out soon. I don't know. That was my take
That's
on it.
actually a really good way to think about it. Will we actually meet that kid, or was that the only glimpse we will ever get?
Yeah, I kind of took it as like, this is what could have been. Rick was having, when he was in the little Winnebago meeting with Negan, he was having hallucinations of everyone else getting hit with the bat.
Yeah, when he was up on the roof.
Yeah, and I think that was another little manifestation in his head, kind of little window into his guilt, I think. The choices I made led to that actuality and not this future, and yeah, that's a hard scene to watch, considering everything we had been through already in that episode. Just to see this, perfect family, moment, and knowing that it'll never happen.
Yeah, I think it was a perfect scene to kind of give people that happy ending that's never going to happen, while still reminding them that it's nothing but a dream, with Negan speaking in the background like that.
Right.
I mean, if I've ever been close to crying, it was that scene for sure.
Yeah, if Gordy wasn't sitting next to me, I probably would have been bawling like a baby. That's true.
I don't know if I would have. I think I've expected this. Like I was prepared. I was prepared to lose someone pretty important for this episode, so I didn't feel the tears. I didn't feel very emotional, which I normally do. Like I'm a huge sap when it comes to movies and shows. But yeah, I guess you're right. If there was going to be a point though, that would have been it, when they're like they're tugging at your heartstrings.
Yeah, because everything else
scene. And the music.
Yeah.
Man.
Because every other part, that you could have potentially cried on, everything was just happening so quickly. You didn't have a whole lot of time to process.
Right.
But at the end there, that would have been my moment. But you had to ruin it by your presence. Sit alone in my dark condo and cry to myself over it.
It's gonna be on again.
I know.
Here in about 25 minutes. If you want to watch it after I leave.
Weep into my pillows.
And how about that guy that plays Negan? He does that way
Jeffrey
too
Dean
well.
Morgan.
Yeah. Before they announced that it was going to be him, they were saying it was going to be Kevin Durand, or that it might have
Michael
been
Hamm, I heard, or John Hamm. I'm sorry, Michael Hamm.
No.
Well, I heard that too.
Yeah, which I think physically and like appearance wise, Kevin Durand probably would have looked the part better, but I think
I had heard
Morgan.
I had heard John Hamm, and I thought that was pretty decent. But I'd never even and I was prophesizing who I thought it was going to be and trying to guess and who I thought would be perfect. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who I'm a huge fan of, didn't even enter into my thought process, which was dumb, because he is freaking perfect.
Yeah.
He is perfect. I physically, the way he talks, and just to be clear for you, you don't read the comics. Every other word out of Negan's mouth in the comics is a fuck or a shit or a cock or...
What was the one?
So profane.
What was the line that he said? Something about I'm happier than a fucking fuck on free fucks day or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And yeah, I knew obviously that eventually Negan would make an appearance, but talking with other people who read the comics, even way before this season, I was like, I don't know how they're going to do it. without the show switching to HBO,
Yeah.
I don't know how they're gonna do this character, because every other word out of his mouth is profanity. And it works in the comics. I don't know how well it would have worked on TV, but yeah, AMC's doing the best they can with that. But
Yeah.
I think Jeffrey Dean Morgan is I can't think of anybody better for that role.
I mean, just showing him, like, finding true humor in these, like, grotesque, just super brutal situations perfectly captures the part.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, had you guys ever seen Jeffrey Dean Morgan in anything else?
No.
Mike?
No, not I. I mean, I'm not a big TV person actually, which is kind of funny, or movies. So I mean, I've never really seen him before, other than when he entered The Walking Dead,
Yeah.
and yeah, he was so good at being evil. I just can't help but to think maybe in real life he's a little evil too.
No, he was on Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy, like as a doctor?
Well, no, he was a patient. No, I'm not even going to get into it because
He was like one episode.
yeah, no, he was in more than that. But he was in Supernatural, like in the very beginning. Like, so I've been a fan of his for a long time, and he's just perfect. Yeah,
Who was he in Supernatural?
he was the dad, Sam and Dean's dad.
Okay.
He was like in the first 2 or 3 seasons, and
My wife watches that
sporadically here and
religiously.
there. Yeah,
So I think I remember that being on in the background.
yeah. Well, I think we've talked our feelings out enough, and I think we covered most of the episode. But again, if there's stuff that you guys think we missed or stuff that you guys want to talk about, please let us know. You can go to our Facebook page, and you can find it at Cross Platform XP on Facebook. Give us a like, and hopefully we'll be posting this up there very shortly. And yeah, questions, comments, anything, we'd love to hear from you. We didn't plan on this being an only Walking Dead episode, but it I felt like deserved its own thing. We didn't want it to be lopsided on topic wise. So yeah, go to Facebook at Cross Platform XP and let us know what you think. And for me, Heath, Gordy Mills, and Mike, we'll say goodnight.
Have a good one.
Have a good night.